Good morning, fight fans. The suspect is in cuffs. The headlines say case closed. And yet the internet is still louder than the sirens. One arrest, 1,000 theories. Careers getting torched over tweets. And yes, we'll finish with the biggest fights of the week. Because we still live for that rush. But first, let's walk through what actually matters and what was pure noise. Keep your guard up, there's a lot of feints in this story. The official announcement dropped like a hammer. A 22-year-old student named Tyler Robinson taken into custody for the killing of Charlie Kirk. That's the headline, unglamorous and heavy. No dramatic car chase, no movie monologue, just a name, an age, and a court date. For a lot of people, it was the first real moment of silence in a week of shouting. But silence online doesn't last. The story didn't end, it forked. One path, the legal one, moves on rails. Charges, hearings, evidence. The other path, the internet, runs on vibes, and vibes don't have to be true to be viral. You've seen it, a grainy clip, a red circle, a zoom that ruins the pixels and grows the confidence. Suddenly a scratch on an arm is a signal, a hat tip becomes confirmation, and a ring changing fingers in a jump cut turns into a command. The speed is intoxicating. Nobody wants to wait for forensics when you can feel like a detective in 8 seconds. Something in our brains loves that jolt, the secret pattern, the aha, and it spreads like caffeine. But here's the uncomfortable part. The confidence we feel has nothing to do with the quality of the proof. It's just how clean the story sounds. And the cleaner the story, the harder it is to let go. While comment sections drafted their own SWAT plans, the real break didn't come from a Reddit thread. It came from close to home. The reporting pointed to a simple, brutal human truth. Sometimes the people who recognize you best are the ones who can't look away. The father in this story, decades in law enforcement, allegedly chose duty over denial. That's not clickbait, that's heartbreak. It also explains something important about cases like this. You can stack 1,000 enhanced screenshots, but one person who knows your walk, your tilt, your voice, that person can make the call that actually changes everything. Officials described odd, taunting engravings on unfired casings like the shooter was trying to make the bullets talk for him. It reads like theater, mockery, memes, references tossed in like confetti. This is where reality is more disturbing than any conspiracy, because it's not the elegance of a shadow network, it's the chaos of someone trying to be memorable in the ugliest way possible. That's the shape of modern infamy, irony wrapped around violence, stamped into metal and meant to trend. Within hours, a different machine started up. The employment grinder. Users clipped, compiled, and forwarded celebratory posts about Kirk's death to bosses, boards, and deans. Policies were quoted, investigations opened. It's the new American ritual, weaponized receipts. And here's the friction point. Free speech protects you from the government, not from company policy. People relearn that lesson every week. Is it fair? Depends who you ask. Is it predictable? Absolutely. Employers don't want to be tomorrow's headline. The moral becomes a memo. If you cheer violence publicly, your HR department might not clap with you. Amid the politics, the posts, and the shouting, there's a family that lost a husband and a father. There's also a family grappling with a son who may spend the rest of his life in court and concrete. 2 homes with empty chairs. 2 futures that snapped. It's so easy to keep this as a content war. Our side versus your side. But most of life isn't a side. It's a living room. None of this is a victory for anyone who still cares about what happens to actual people when the cameras turn off. Crowds are great at finding novelty. They're terrible at context. The most convincing clip you've seen this week probably omitted the 2 minutes before it, the 2 minutes after it, and the angle that would have ruined the storyline. That's why every big case has 2 versions, the internet cut and the trial. The internet cut generates certainty. The trial tests it. If you want to live with your head clear, do something radical. Be suspicious of any narrative that depends on one frame and a caption. The real process is slow, boring, and maddeningly thorough. They start with the when and where times, angles, sound signatures, trajectory lines, distances. They scrape cell towers, pull camera grids, match clothing giveaways, talk to neighbors, and chase dead ends. Cases are built one dull brick at a time. You can't binge that. You can only suffer it. That's why We Got Him feels like it arrives out of nowhere, because it hides 1,000 little decisions you'd never sit through on a live stream. It's not cinematic, and that's exactly why it works. Why do so many people cheer when something awful happens to someone they dislike? It's simple and rotten. In-group dopamine. If your team wins, your brain gives you a cookie. Over time, you start craving bigger wins and nastier cookies. But when we cheer for death, we're feeding a part of ourselves that's going to be hungry again tomorrow. So we escalate. That's how we end up with people laughing on camera while a family is planning a funeral. It's not politics, it's appetite. And once you see it that way, it's harder to be proud of it. Holding people accountable isn't the same as destroying them for sport. There's a difference between you crossed a line and your employer needs to know and let's nuke this person's life to feel powerful. The first can create boundaries. The second creates enemies. The receipts economy runs hot, and like any hot engine, it burns what's nearby. Sometimes that's a hateful post, sometimes it's the person you used to be, posted at 2 a.m., waiting for you a decade later. The line is thin, step carefully. When an organization loses a leader suddenly, it either drifts or it anchors. The move to elevate the widow as CEO chair is a classic anchoring strategy: continuity, clarity, control. It tells donors and loyalists, we're still here. It tells critics, we're not going anywhere. And for the family, it offers a way to turn grief into motion. Sometimes healthy, sometimes just necessary. Institutions don't like vacuums, they fill them fast. Expect filings, hearings, and a lot of sentences that begin with alleged. Expect leaks that feel definitive until they're not. Expect both sides to try to win the press long before they try to win a jury. Most of all, expect people to get tired, and that's when bad takes get recycled as facts, because nobody wants to recheck the timeline. If you care about the truth more than the feeling, guard yourself against fatigue. That's when you're easiest to fool. Don't share a clip unless you know its origin. Don't trust a caption that tells you how to feel before it shows you what happened. Don't argue with strangers who enjoy being cruel. There's no W waiting for you there. Don't let a tragedy harden your heart into hoping for more tragedy. And don't forget the baseline: a person is gone. If your take can't hold that in its mouth without sneering, it's not a take, it's rot. We've built this channel on fights, real ones, with rules where the damage is voluntary and the clock stops. We respect that kind of violence because everyone signs the waiver and the consequence is earned. When violence leaps the fence into real life, nothing about it is noble. That's why we cover this story at all. We talk about power, risk, and consequence every day, and this week that conversation spilled into the street. Now gloves on, time to sprint through the fight world. Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford, the night the chessboard smoked. Allegiant Stadium became a pressure cooker. On one side, Canelo built like a vault, master of timing and torque, comfortable at 68. On the other, Crawford, a switch-hitting menace who makes world-class opponents look like they keep dropping their keys. This wasn't a bar fight, this was an MRI of elite decision-making. First note you could hear from the upper deck: Canelo's base doesn't crumble, he walks you to the edges and tests your legs. Crawford's answer wasn't to plant, he played violin, changing touch and angle, refusing to give Canelo the pocket exchange he wanted. Round swung like a metronome, a Canelo jab that sounded like a stapler in a library, a Crawford step-off counter that erased the follow-up. By the championship rounds, you could see the tactical taxes, body shots adding up, feints getting paid off, both corners trying not to blink. However you had it, this was a masterclass in adjustments, and beyond the scorecards, it was a business quake, boxing under the Netflix banner, Dana White's fingerprints on the spectacle, a live gate that said the experiment isn't an experiment anymore, it's a lane. For Canelo, legacy fights are no longer a wish list, they're a calendar. For Crawford, every opponent at 147, 154, 160 starts asking hard questions about range and respect. The fan base gets greedy here. Run it back, unify the universe, cross another star. Greed is good in combat sports, it forces the promoters to act. If you came for chaos, Diego Lopez obliged. The spinning back elbow in round 2 didn't just land, it detonated. That shot lives in the category of you can't drill this without being crazy, and yet he drilled it. John Silva is no soft touch, he brought a gun to a gunfight. And that's what made the finish so loud, it wasn't a cheap trick. Lopez read, set, and executed. Double bonus well earned. Feels like a star turn the moment a contender stops being dangerous and starts being inevitable. Lopez disguises intentions with tempo. He'll give you half beats that tempt you forward, then wrap you in the counter you thought he wouldn't throw. That style scales. Once he's in top 10 waters, that unpredictability is going to put wrestle boxers in decision purgatory and pure strikers into trap doors. If the elbow was the headline, the footwork is the fine print that matters most. Imagine a summer evening in the capital. The South Lawn for the ticketed elite. A park across the street for the massive crowd and big screens. It's audacious, theatrical, and perfectly on brand. The message is simple. Combat sports belongs in the center of culture, not at the edges. Names will swirl, Conor McGregor always does. But here's what matters, the venue itself is the headline. It reframes the sport as a civic event, not just a pay-per-view. If they pull it off without a hitch, every future bid for stadiums and city takeovers gets easier. You need reliability and sizzle, fighters who don't miss walkouts and don't shrink under bright lights. Think champions who carry themselves like mayors and contenders who understand they're auditioning for immortality. The matchmaking math becomes political as much as athletic. That's fine. This is the show business corner of the Hurt Business. The fight community is never shy. Some voices leaned hard into outrage, demanding punishments that went way past legal boundaries. Others urged calm, let the system work. A few tried to ride the algorithm with shock jock takes that turned stomachs and racked views at the same time. It's a mirror we should look into carefully. Fighters understand consequence better than most people when they forget that it's usually because a camera is rolling and attention is a drug. There's the public pain, the pressers, the speeches, the tributes. Then there's the private pain. A kid who doesn't understand why their hero isn't coming home, a mother who has to become steel, siblings who have to become quiet. On the other side, there's a family processing the idea that someone they love may have done the worst thing. That's a grief too. The cameras don't like that grief because it complicates the plot, but real life is built from complications, not clean lines. Here's what this week taught us. Again, violence turns facts into fog. The internet sells confidence on credit. And in the middle of the smoke, regular people can lose their jobs, their reputations, and their ability to see one another as human. If you're going to be online, and we all are, pay attention to the feeling that says this is too perfect. That feeling is the trap. Demand more than vibes. Wait for the receipts, not the retweets. And when you're angry, and you will be, choose words you can defend tomorrow morning. Now for the diehards. We've got a boxing landscape that just proved it can fill a stadium and a streaming giant at the same time. We've got a featherweight in Diego Lopez who just spray painted the division with the word problem. And we've got a summer rumor about a fight card on the front lawn of the nation's house that could turn combat sports into a civic holiday. We'll keep the pace fast, the storytelling clean, and the coverage honest. No fear, no fluff. See you in the next one.